So this is just kind of a quick update. A lot of you in the comments have kind of posted that, hey, can I get some advice with this and that, with the CR30, etc. And I've got some optimistic results and stuff to share with you. But first, I figured I'd give you a quick update with the state of the fleet. And so, in the back here, starting from left to right, I've got my CR10S that I'm planning on installing a Pi 20W or whatever it's called, right? And planning to put on Octoprint, right? I've already got a BTT E3 V2 Mini in there, and so I just want to have some better control of it. I just want to make the switch to Clipper. I've already got a new build plate on there, right? That kind of responds well to printing nylon and things like that. So big plans for that in the coming weeks. Behind me is my Sonic Mega AK V1. I did have to update the LCD. The LCD, when I bought it, was cracked. I think I paid about $500 for it. MSRP was probably about $3,000 or so. So I think it was a pretty good deal. When it comes to how it's been printing, right, it's been a workhorse. I've gotten a lot of utility out of it. Friends have been asking me for things like fantasy football trophies, etc. And it's really good. Just the pain in the butt is just always the cleanup. Right? I spend like an hour or so after every print. But yeah, so it's just been pretty good overall. As well as I've got my ultrasonic in the corner and my curing box below it there. Quick update, I also forgot that I have my FL Sun SR Super Racer in the back here that I purchased for a pretty good price when I was home for the holidays. And so it came with an enclosure. It's already got a board in the back, right, and a clipper for mainsail. And it's got a vent in the back if I ever want to hook it up to an external vent. So overall, I got a pretty good deal. Excited because I haven't had much experience with Delta printers in the past, so I can't wait to get that up and running. Maybe do a video on it, see if there's any other mods. I mean, the guy I bought it from added a webcam and a lot of other fun things, and I got it for a pretty dang good price, all things considered. So maybe more to come there. As well, I've got my X1C, which is always my go-to, right? I've installed a Sunlu Filament Dryer box on it, which I highly recommend. Only issue is, though, I think my AMS3 has been acting up, so it's not perfect, but it's still pretty good, right? And maybe in the future I'll upgrade to, P2S or an X2C or something, But for now, it's pretty good, and I can't really have any complaints, big complaints, apart from those old software debate. But if you don't mind, kind of control over your own software and that sort of thing, and you just want something to fire and forget, nothing else withstanding, it's been pretty good. My Voron, or my BZ-Bot, which I'll probably be getting started on pretty soon here. Of course, the topic of the video, right, my CR30, which is pretty much up and running, and I'll talk about here in a bit, more in depth. And then my 203s, one which I've done extensive mods on, things like belted Z-axis, dual 15 fans, insulated the heated bed for better temps, as well as I moved my old Sonic Pad, which if you guys remember from my first video, I ended up moving from the CR30 to my Ender 3s up there. Which I'll go into some reasons in a bit here why I decided to do so. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so going right into it, right, big things I updated, right, I added an CR30 Easy. This was after getting some advice from someone on the CR30 print mill Discord, right, that they had updated to an CR3 Easy because they wanted some more powerful stepper drivers, which I think overall it's been a good decision, and it gives me some room to grow in the future if I want to go to things like adding 48 volts, right, and upping the temps or upping the current and the voltage on those stepper motors. So I'm currently still at feeding off of what the board is fed, 24 volt, but it gives it just a little bit more power and control. And overall, I'm pretty happy with how the drivers are responding to my settings right now, my speeds. So when it comes to, let's see, what else have I done? BTT Pad 7, right? So I've added a Pad 7 to replace my Sonic Pad. Gives me more control. I think, and also better functionality as well. I needed to update the firmware with that. Let's see, linear rails. I'll talk about that as well, but I think that's kind of just been necessary. The V wheels have add a lot of friction, right? And the higher in speeds you go, I think the more it shows. So I think the linear rails really help to bring the CR30 into that upper kind of echelon performance. As well as I updated my slicer right, and I'm kind of pushing speeds similar to the Ideaformer, and I added a filament dryer as well, which I got for a good price when I was home for the holidays. So when it comes to the CR30 Easy, right, cost-wise, I believe the board ran me about 55 bucks, and each of the 5160 Easy drivers were about 20 bucks. Do you have to buy drivers for all 4 axes? No, not really. I think it's mostly necessary for the X and Y. And I would say maybe you can go with like a 2209 or something else, right, for your Z-axis and your extruder. So I think that just the big ones that will need the performance is the X and Y. Mounting solution, right? So I'll go ahead and add some pictures here about possible mounting solutions. So as far as I'm aware, the only mounting solutions for the CR30 that I found on Thingiverse, printables, etc., has been for the SKR3/3 Easy and for the BTT Mini E3 V3, which I know is also another pretty popular swap. I'll also talk about, let's see, cooling solution, right? So one of the big things that I had to do with the CR30, right, is I wasn't able to reuse the fan that comes stock on it, and so I ended up adding in a 50-15 fan, just putting some double-sided tape, and then having that blow on it. Again, as the board kind of advertises, you don't really need active cooling unless you're kind of pushing high voltages, but I still want peace of mind, right? And so I just have a constant fan, 50-15 fan, blowing consistently on the board whenever it's on. So I don't mind the noise. I'd rather just preserve the electronics. Let's see, what else have I done as well, right? With the SKR3 and maybe other board, or the 3 Easy, right, and other boards that you may want to use, you may not have the clearances to reuse the plate. So my recommendation is maybe you can get away with printing some spacers, or just having some spacers and using longer screws. Granted, right, the little feet that come with the CR30 may not give you that much more clearance. Maybe you can print some bigger feet if you need more clearance. But for my purposes, right, I needed to have the USB cable that connected to the Pad 7 come out the front of the printer and kind of snake its way all around. So my solution was just to print or get some longer screws and then attach it that way. Let's see. And then last thing here, I'll break the video, right, and I'll swap over to my computer and kind of talk about pinouts, right, and some general advice there. Not just for the SKR3 Easy, but also some other boards that you may want to use that you think have a better fit, or you might have something lying around. So, hello. Okay, so just a quick overview, right? So here's the printer CFG. First thing I wanted to mention was, let's see what we got here. Yeah, so this post that I had found, right? Basically, what BTT did was apparently they updated the board architecture, right, to the 723 instead of the advertised 743. So they didn't seem to really publish that anywhere. Maybe you can kind of just double check, sanity check, right, when you're physically inspecting the board itself. But this just kind of tripped me up. So something just to keep in mind whenever you're swapping out your boards from stock, that manufacturers may, especially like BTT, may update their, the board types from time to time, just because they're probably putting out so much product, I'd imagine. So just something to keep a note of. Let's see, what else? I can also mention, yeah, so motors, right? So let's pull this guy up. Right, so the rated current of the LDO naked stepper motors, right, for the CR30, rated current is 2.0. So if we just go here, right, so a good rule of thumb is 0.707. So that'd give you about a 1.4, and then that's basically why I've got 1.4 here in the TMC 5160 sections of the clipper, right? I've got 1.4, 1.4, just to kind of keep in line with that, continuous value that you should be practicing whenever you're, trying to find the max output. So you'll just have to do that calculation based on the specifications sheet for the stepper motors in mind. Okay. Other than that, it's pretty cut and dry. So what you want to do is you want to grab your, a generic like clipper firmware, which is basically what I did, right? I took this CR30 config file, right? This is kind of outdated. So this was created about 5 years ago. Clippers changed a lot. So there's a few commands in here, right? Whenever you're going through, like, let's say a BTT Pad 7 setup, right? Things will change, right, over time, and some examples of which, right, like I had to change some of the ways, like how to line up like the heater fan and the fans and the pins and the filament switches, right? And so the BTT Pad 7 is pretty smart, right? It gave me errors every time I try to compile it, and so whenever it found issues with it, I would just have to go in there and kind of update, right? Like, oh, I need to change this because this is new in Clipper, that sort of thing. So let's see, right? So big thing, the pads. So something else I ran into, right? You need to add this section here, right? For whenever you're working with TMC 5160 drivers, right? So just make sure, right, that they're all pinned out accordingly. Easiest way to do this is you just grab a pinout board, from the manual, something like this, right? And you just kind of take your pins, depending on where you plug in the wires into. You just plug everything in accordingly and then match it up with the appropriate areas in your config file. So just come here and you just have to match it side by side. It's a bit of a grueling effort, right? But I will attach, if let's say you want to follow the SKR3 easy, right, path, and then you want to kind of compile it. So I'm not saying my printer.cfg is perfect right now. I've got a lot of tweaking to do, but the way as it stands right now, it's working and it's an operable state. So I'm happy to share whatever info I can with the community. I also had to add in, right, they also changed the G code macro pause, resume, cancel, print stuff, right? So I also included in settings that seem to be working for me, right? I tested it by pausing the print, mid-print, and then continuing, and it seems to be working fine. So it is outdated on the Clipper CR30 on GitHub there. So just went ahead and updated that from the Clipper page with the new kind of G code and macros and stuff like that. I think that's basically it. There's a few other things in here, like the resonance tester, the ADXL, MCU, right? So, but again, if you compile it with something like a BTT Pad 7, that's why I like it, because it's smart enough to tell you that there's an error. And so you'll just kind of look up what the error is, go on, fix it, et cetera, et cetera. Again, right, when you're kind of copying, pasting this from somewhere, right, so these steppers settings, right, that are separate for your drivers, right, just make sure if you're using 2209 or whatever, right, that it's a TMC 2209. I run into a few errors because I forgot to update it to a 5160, etc. Other than that, you're just going to have to go in, like I said, and just match everything in your config file to the appropriate pins as you plug them in, and just read the manual, and then go from there. Okay, and we're back. When it comes to the BTT Pad 7, I read the reviews, right? It's about as easy to work with as a Sonic Pad, if not a little bit harder, especially because you have to do a lot more work. There's no real easy menu where you can just put in like an Ender 3 or whatever, or write some other proprietary Creality printer and just click and go. In theory, right, you kind of have to do a little bit more of the legwork yourself, but I think it's a lot more rewarding because you get a quality product, something that's still supported actively, right? As far as I know, the Sonic Pad isn't really being supported at this point, so it's still good for my purposes when it comes to the Ender 3s and other maybe older Creality products, but I think just to kind of give it that next step, right, I think the Pad 7 has just been a lot more worthwhile for the long run. Okay, linear rails. So I think overall, right, and I'll kind of share a screenshot of the cults page. But this mod has been pretty invaluable. Kind of moving on from B wheels, especially when you're trying to push for higher speeds, is I would say almost a must-have, right? Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot of things like a lot of unnecessary friction, possible layer shifts, etc. Things aren't as smooth. So I think just linear rails, especially with like a core XY setup like this, is almost a must. And I think cost-wise of it, probably didn't run me more than $80 in materials, right? So I think the parts required on the cults page mention the rails themselves, which are going to be the most expensive part. Heat inserts, screws, things like that. I think overall, yeah, like I said, about $80 or so. So pretty affordable, I think, for the mod that you're getting. And then when it comes to the Idea Maker profile, right? So the current benchmark that I'm looking at, the kind of most recent, belt printer that's hit the market has been the Ideaformer IR3 V2, and from what I recall, reviews of that have benchies printing at about 45 minutes. That's about what I'm printing a benchy at with this new updated CR30. So I think, given the fact that with minimal upgrades, right, I would argue even the Pad 7 isn't a requirement, but it's more of a quality of life mod. But definitely with that CR30 Easy and the drivers, the linear rail mod, right, just those two mods alone, just for an additional, $200 or so. Like, you're updating an older printer, right? At this point, the CR30 is running about 5 or 6 years old, and this thing is keeping up with the current generation of belt printers, which already is a pretty niche market. So this is just, these mods have been really good to kind of keep this thing up to date, because when you're printing really long prints, time really adds up. So I think the fact that it's keeping up with that, with the Ideaformer, is a really good sign. And as well, right, you can keep modding this to your heart's content and seeing if you want to add in 48 volts, etc., and pushing for those higher speeds. But for right now, as long as I'm kind of matching the industry standard and what's out currently on the market, I'm pretty happy. And then finally, Filament Dryer. So I updated to an IBOS, just to kind of give me some flexibility if I want to get a 3 kilogram spool, right, and then feed it out. That avoids having to keep stopping the print, especially if it's like a 15 or 20 hour print, something really long, like a sword or whatever, right, and I don't have to keep swapping out the spool. And in general, right, you should probably always be keeping your filament dry to the max extent possible, just for increased print quality, less straining, that sort of thing. So those are just some quick updates, right? Hopefully this helps you guys out, especially if you find a CR30 on Marketplace or something, and you're not sure if this thing can still keep up. I would make the argument that it's still, it's still worth it, especially if you're able to put the time, love, and care into keeping up to date. It's been a fun project, and I'm looking forward to really getting some use out of it in kind of fringe cases, right? Like, cosplay swords, or or if I need to make repeat prints of something, it's really good for that as well. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments.